So the NBA finally came out with its suspension for John Morant, the quote unquote official suspension. The whole thing with him taking time away from the team lately, or being away from the team, and this is per the team's words, it was time for him to reflect on his actions and find a way to deal with stress. That was his words and the team's words and blah, 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 a bunch of bullshit that I'll get into later. But the whole thing was that there was still everyone was waiting. Well, is it going to be an official suspension? Like, what's the deal here? Is this going to be something that the team's able to take care of and whatnot? So everyone was waiting for the NBA to deal out whatever punishment was going to happen after their investigation into the actions that happened with him in Colorado with the gun. Well, they concluded it. It was nothing where it was like any kind of criminal charge or whatever, but obviously, the optics were what they were. And they came out with a 8-game suspension for Mr. John Morant. But the key in that is that it's not really an 8-game suspension. The 8 games includes, and at the time I'm recording this, the 6 games that he's already missed and the additional 2 that follow when the suspension was levied out, meaning he's eligible to return on Monday against, I can't remember what the team was, with the Mavericks, as I believe it was. So in reality, more like a 2-game suspension in terms of what the league sort of levied out and all that. And it was also suspension without pay. So I guess he doesn't get paid for the games that he already missed also. So you have that. And with that, it's brought up some more questions in the fact that the whole thing with him going to check into counseling to get help, that was a report just a few days ago. And he's already checked out of it. He already had his interview that they put on Sports Center with Jalen Rose, and so like, hey, everything's fine and good. And it's just like, really? And the whole reason why I sort of question all of this is that one, an 8-game suspension, and let me 8 games in quotes, because this is what I call a fake ass 8-game suspension. He took the time away from the team to sort of quote unquote find ways to deal with like stress and whatnot. That's not really what it was, dealing with stress. It was just him acting like a thug, him trying to act hard, being a really kind of try hard when it comes to all that kind of stuff with his kind of image, his attitude, the entourage, the sort of extracurricular activities he was engaging in off the court. This is all that kind of shit. So dealing with stress, get the fuck out of here with that. That's not what it was. But then the whole thing is just like, it's not really an 8-game suspension, And a suspension is when a league sort of puts out their mandate in terms of games that you miss. And that does not include the ones that you have already missed in terms of the team and you saying, hey, I just need to take the time away to, deal with all this stuff going on. So if it really was an 8-game suspension, it would have started like right now and he would miss the next 8 games going forward. Those 6 games that he missed don't really count. That's not really a league-induced suspension, because the whole thing is that even after the whole incident, he could have gone out to play any of these games and it would have been, fine. And I guess the league's optics, not in optics, but just in terms of league rules, because the league didn't levy out any kind of suspension. And this just kind of lines up with everything that I just have not been liking about Adam Silver as a commissioner. I've really just gotten very kind of fed up with him. I just think he is the softest, weakest commissioner in sports that I've ever seen. There's just a lot of problems that the league has right now, per rules, per players actually playing, per league image in a lot of things. And he just kind of seems to be like, well, as long as the players are happy, that's fine by me. I mean, you just take a look at all the problems the league has right now, mainly the one when it comes to load management. And per his words, he just comes out and says, yo, I don't really see it as a problem, even though players are missing games like it's nothing. You had the Laker game yesterday, which I just wanted to not pull my hair out, pull my beard out, just because you have the Lakers in pursuit of a championship spot, or not championship, play-in spot. And they rest AD only because it's off a back-to-back. And it's like, wait, what? Resting? What are you resting for? You are at the tail end of a play-in spot at the 10 seed, and you decide to rest a player, and it's just like, and in Adam Silver's mind, it's like, well, that's okay, I guess. Just a whole bunch of issues when it comes to that kind of shit. And then relating back to this whole John Morant thing, you have a guy like the whole Instagram gun video, idiotic, stupid, unbelievably stupid. And you can just leave it at that. But just everything that goes into it. And the stupidity comes in even more when you come off the laundry list of incidents that he was involved in. Before that Instagram gun video, he's coming off reports of him punching a teenager and threatening with a gun, another gun-related incident. There was another gun-related incident a month or so ago with him and his entourage flashing like a red laser at the Indiana Pacers. NBA did their investigation and they weren't able to sort of corroborate or confirm it was a gun. But even if it wasn't the gun, the whole idea is that that laser is a threat of violence. And it's like, what do you think a laser being pointed at you is supposed to mean? You're not exactly playing laser tag here. And then you even get into minor stuff like the off the court or the Lakers Grizzlies game a few months ago, or the whole sort of stuff on the court with Shannon Sharp. And it's just like, it's just a whole bunch of incidents with him and that Memphis Grizzlies team, to be honest. And all of that put together, it's all like, wait a minute, the punishment for that is 8 games. It's kind of silly, but it's really kind of indicative of a lot of the stuff that's wrong with the league and wrong with its commissioner. And if there was a living, breathing commissioner, like how there was with David Stern, he would have looked at this and said, I don't give a shit if your team is in pursuit of the playoffs and whatnot. Here's a nice 30-game suspension. Don't play with guns, don't threaten violence, don't bring this kind of image to the league, all this kind of nonsense. And as far as John Morant himself, it's just more sort of questions about, well, what exactly was really going on here? Because the whole thing was that after he took the time away, he came out with a statement, I just need to find ways to, deal with stress. Oh, so you and your entourage pointing a laser at a team is dealing with stress. You punching teenagers is dealing with stress. You on an Instagram live dangling a gun is dealing with stress. Yeah, I don't really buy that. That's the whole thing with any kind of excuse that people need to use now. They just throw out it's my mental health, my mental health and my stress. That's what's really getting me right now. A whole bunch of nonsense when it comes to that. I've heard enough of that kind of excuse in my lifetime. And players just throw it out like it's nothing now. The whole thing with Ben Simmons last year, where it's like, oh, it's my mental health. That's why I can't play for y'all. No, it's not. It's because you're a sorry, lazy bum who don't want to put in the work. And I'm not saying that about John Morant. John Morant is a unbelievable talent, and he's great for the league in that aspect because he is an electrifying player. Just before the suspension, I had watched that game he played against the Lakers where he had like a 39-point triple-double. He was absolutely sensational, and he's an unbelievable talent, as I just said. But the kind of image that he was kind of putting forth, the list of incidents he was involved in, yeah, obviously not good. And the fact that it gets a 2-game suspension, like I said, it's a 2-game suspension. Don't buy into this nonsense where it's an 8-game suspension. Kind of silly, but as I mentioned, indicative of a lot of the problems with the league and its commissioner. And it just kind of is what it is. It's going to take it will be interesting to see his first game back, the kind of reception that Memphis gives him. And I'm sure Memphis will give him a great reaction. They've never had a superstar caliber player like John Morant. And, obviously it's a world of second chances. I totally get that. But I do think kind of the punishment has to kind of, meet the crime in certain aspects in terms of his off the court shenanigans and whatnot. And it'd be one thing if the Instagram live thing was an isolated incident and be like, well, it's kind of weird, but whatever. But when you're just coming off an incident or allegations that you were punching a teenager and threatening them with a gun, yeah, it's probably not the best idea to come out with an Instagram live gun video. And also probably not the best look for the league to suspend him 8 games, really 2 games. But that's the kind of NBA world that we live in now.